A mother locked her front door for the last time. Children stood silently beside the road, watching trucks carry away furniture, photographs, and the only life they had ever known. The church bell would never ring there again. The school would never reopen, because the town itself was about to disappear. Not because of war, not because of a natural disaster, but because the government decided the land was worth more than the people living on it. In the 1930s, towns across the United States began vanishing, not through violence or neglect, but through policy. Federal relocation programs transformed entire regions. Families who had lived in the same places for generations were forced to leave behind homes, farms, churches, and cemeteries. One of those towns was Loyston, Tennessee. Before the federal government arrived, Loyston was a quiet community surrounded by rolling hills and farmland. People there lived simple lives. Children walked dirt roads to school. Farmers woke before sunrise to tend fields their families had worked for decades. On weekends, the town gathered at church. Everyone knew each other by name. A stranger passing through would immediately be noticed. Life in Loyston was not wealthy or glamorous, but it felt permanent. Then the Tennessee Valley Authority arrived and nothing was permanent anymore. During the Great Depression, the US government launched massive infrastructure projects across the country. One of the largest involved building a series of dams throughout Tennessee, projects designed to generate electricity, control flooding, and modernize some of the most impoverished regions in the nation. Officials called it progress, and in many ways it was. Electricity reached communities that had lived without it for generations. Jobs appeared during the worst economic crisis in American history. Entire landscapes were reshaped, but behind the engineering achievements was a reality that rarely made the headlines. Entire towns stood in the path of the rising water. Loyston was one of them. Government officials informed residents that their land would be flooded after the construction of Norris Dam. The message was simple: relocate or be displaced by the reservoir. For many families, the announcement felt surreal. They had built their entire lives there. Parents and grandparents rested in nearby cemeteries. Homes held decades of memory, birthdays, harvests, first steps, last words, none of which could be packed into a moving box. Some residents accepted the government's compensation and left quietly. Others stayed as long as they could, hoping plans would change. But the water was coming regardless. Over the following months, the town slowly emptied. Neighbors who had spent entire lifetimes side by side found themselves scattered across different counties. Children who walked the same roads every morning would never see some of their classmates again. Even the cemeteries became part of the relocation. Families were forced to make an impossible choice: move the graves of loved ones or leave them beneath land that would soon be swallowed by water. For many residents, that was the moment the loss became unbearable. The government measured everything in acres and compensation figures. The people measured it differently: a front porch where grandparents sat every evening, a field where children learned to work beside their fathers, a church where generations had been baptized, married, and mourned. None of those things had a dollar value. None of them could be relocated. As construction on Norris Dam moved forward, the landscape around Loyston transformed rapidly. Heavy equipment reshaped roads, trees disappeared, entire sections of land were cleared. The closer the project came to completion, the quieter the town became. Shops closed early, schools sat empty, windows stayed dark at night. People had stopped building futures there. They were preparing to leave them behind. Then, in 1936, the waters came. The Clinch River began rising, slowly at first, then relentlessly. Roads disappeared beneath the surface, then fields, then the stone foundations of homes that had stood for generations. What had been a living American community became water and silent. Today, most people crossing Norris Lake in a boat have no idea they are passing over an entire town. Beneath the water lie old roads, home sites, and the foundations of lives that once seemed permanent. But during severe drought seasons, pieces of that world resurface. Stone foundations break the waterline. Fragments of old roads appear at the edges of the reservoir. Collapsed structures rest silently just beneath the surface. For descendants of former Loyston residents, those moments carry a weight that is difficult to describe. Because what lies beneath the lake is not just land or stone. It is a town that once lived, breathed, and then disappeared. Loyston was not alone. Across the United States throughout the 20th century, hundreds of communities faced the same fate. Dams, reservoirs, highways, and federal development projects erased towns that had existed for generations. In some places, residents had only months to leave. In others, communities faded slowly over years as families quietly moved away one by one. What connected all of them was the same painful truth. The progress celebrated by the nation often came at a cost paid by people who were never asked. Government reports focused on kilowatt hours and flood control statistics. Newspapers printed photographs of engineering achievements, but the stories of displaced families rarely appeared beside them. For the people forced to leave, the experience created a grief that lingered for the rest of their lives. Many described a feeling of being erased, not only physically, but from memory itself. Their town no longer existed on any map. The roads they had walked no longer led anywhere. The places they had called home had no address, no marker, no headstone. As older generations passed away, their memories passed with them. Children born after the relocations grew up knowing almost nothing about the towns their parents had once loved. Old photographs became some of the only surviving evidence. A grocery store on a dirt road, a church gathering on a summer afternoon, a school baseball team frozen. In a moment just before everything changed. In recent decades, historians, researchers, and descendants have begun working to preserve what little remains. Some dive teams have explored the bottoms of reservoirs, documenting submerged bridges, stone walls, and roadbeds that still lie beneath the water. What they find is both remarkable and heartbreaking. Ordinary American life, frozen in time and hidden underwater. Some church cemeteries were relocated before the flooding began. Families gathered one final time to move the graves of relatives who had been buried in those communities for generations. Many people who lived through that process described it as the moment they fully understood what was being taken from them. Leaving a home was painful. Moving the dead made it permanent. These stories matter because they reveal something important about how progress actually works and who pays for it. The lakes and reservoirs built across 20th century America brought electricity, flood protection, and economic development to millions of people. Those achievements were real and significant, but hidden within them were smaller stories of loss that received almost none of the recognition given to the engineers and officials who made the projects possible. Modern America is filled with places people pass every day without realizing what was there before. A peaceful lake may cover the streets of a forgotten town. A forest trail may follow the path of an old school road. A quiet shoreline may mark the center of a community that once held thousands of lives, and perhaps that is what makes these stories so difficult to let go of. They remind us that history is not only built through wars, elections, or famous names. Sometimes history is carried in the ordinary lives that disappeared quietly beneath the surface of progress. Families who never expected their town to end. Children who watched their homes disappear. Communities erased so completely that future generations would barely know they had ever existed. Yet even now, traces remain beneath the water, waiting for drought seasons, waiting for the water to drop just low enough that the past can briefly return to the surface. And then the water rises again, and the towns disappear once more. Because sometimes the most forgotten parts of American history are not the battles we remember. They are the towns we quietly left behind.